So I decided to add the Sony A7cii Mark II to my professional video kit, and I'm going to tell you why. There's three main reasons why I decided to get this camera and how it solves some fundamental issues that I've currently got in my camera ecosystem when it comes to filmmaking. So I'm going to go over all of those. I'm going to leave timestamps in there. So if you just want to go and check those three reasons out, you can go and do that. But hang about and we can talk about why I think the Sony A7cii Mark II is the perfect hybrid camera and probably the most affordable value for money camera that you can buy in 2024 and probably 2025. Now, it's no secret that the Sony A7cii Mark II is the A7 IV in an APS-C size body with only one SD card slot and a slightly smaller, well, I say slightly smaller, the micro HDMI port. They're the only two bad things about this camera. This thing, I think, is really overlooked by a lot of cinematographers, and sadly it is going to be replacing my favourite camera ever, and that is the A7S Mark III. If you don't know about the A7cii Mark II, let me really quickly give you a little overview. So we've got a full frame 33 megapixel sensor in an APS-C size body, and we can finally shoot in 422 10-bit in a camera this size, which is really, really nice. And in my opinion, this thing is the perfect hybrid because, of course, we've got that 33 megapixel for stills, but we've also still got 15 stops of dynamic range in video when we shoot in S-Log 3. And we can still shoot up to 4K 60, but that 4K 60 does jump in to Super 35. Obviously, we've got them brand new Sony AI chips for autofocus, so we've got all of the best autofocus systems on this camera, and we've got that in-body image stabilization. And in my opinion, the only two downsides of this camera are the fact that we've only got one SD card slot. It's not a massive issue for me. I only really use the second SD card slot when I actually want to store a second SD card. I very rarely shoot on two consecutive SD cards. And the second downside, in my opinion, is that tiny micro HDMI port. But for a camera this small, it's obviously going to be very hard to stick a full-size HDMI port on a camera like this. So why did I get an A7cii Mark II when I've already got an FX6 and an FX3? This thing actually solves a fundamental issue that I've got with both my FX6, FX3 and my A7S III, which I'm now going to be selling to make way for this little bad boy, and that is the ability to shoot in Super 35 mode in 4K. Now, fundamentally, I'm a cinematographer, and I just like to use a lens that actually gives me the look that I'm trying to portray in my video or in my film. And I've got a ton of Super 35mm lenses that are just gathering dust, and it's just killing me that I simply can't use them on my full frame FX6 and my FX3. And the reason for that is those sensors simply don't have enough pixels to punch into Super 35 and still get a 4K image, whereas the A7cii Mark II does. Now, full frame has only really been popular over like the last 10 years, and I've got some really nice full frame Sony glass, which obviously the full frame Sony glass has got the best autofocus technology in them and obviously have that really nice low aperture. But I've got some Super 35mm lenses that I'm just dying to use on one of my Sony cameras. And one of my favorite sets of lenses are my Super 35 Laowa Nanomorph anamorphic lenses. I've wanted to use those on my Sony cameras for so long, and until now I haven't had the ability to actually use them because the FX6 and the FX3 can't shoot in 4K in Super 35. Those sensors on the FX6, A7S III, FX3, ZV-E1, those are the best video sensors that Sony do, and they are pretty much always going to be my A camera, the FX6, and my B camera, the FX3. But to have the ability to shoot Super 35 when I want to shoot anamorphic, or if I want to shoot on some Super 35mm cinema lenses, which there are a ton of, the Sony A7cii Mark II I definitely think is the best value for money hybrid camera that is on the market, period. Now, having the ability to shoot full frame and match this image with those 15 stops of dynamic range with the FX6 and the FX3, whilst also having the ability to punch in and shoot in Super 35 to access all of those other lenses that I didn't have access to on my FX6 and FX3, and also have an incredible 33 megapixel full frame stills camera in a tiny little body like this, and having the ability to rig this thing up with the exact same accessories that I'd use for my FX3 rig, the only downside there being that I've got to use that micro HDMI port. All of those reasons, in my opinion, make this camera an absolute no-brainer to add into my camera kit. And the fact that this thing isn't even £2,000, it's an absolute no-brainer, mate. My A7S Mark III has probably got a resale value of like close to £3,000, and this is under 2K, and it unlocks so many additional features for me that my A7S Mark III can't really give me, as a combination with my FX3, for example. Now, I'm actually thinking about making a whole video on this particular topic, but the A7S Mark III, right, has been out for like close to 5 years. Surely that's coming to the end of its shelf life. Surely there's going to be an A7S Mark IV, or they're just going to scrap that and stick to the FX line, selling that way it's still got some value, and investing in a brand new system that has got at least 5 years ahead of it while it's still going to hold its value. Just seems like an absolute no-brainer for me. And on the topic of investments, one of the best investments in my opinion a filmmaker can make is spending 90 seconds making a video for today's sponsor, Artlist, to potentially win their 100k creator fund. I'm not even pulling your leg, mate. Artlist are giving away $100,000 to one creator with one mad idea. The 100k fund gives one creator the opportunity to make their dream project come to life with $100,000. To apply, all you've got to do is make a short video up to 90 seconds that explains your idea and your concept. Don't hold back here, mate, because Artlist don't mess around when it comes to big ideas. Last year's winner sent 12 360 cameras into space to film the Northern Lights. Like, that's no joke. Once you've made that video, you've got to post it on one of your social channels, add the hashtag Artlist100k fund and tag at artlist.io. After you've done that, head over to the Artlist website and fill out the 100k fund application form. Fill in your information, add the link to the video you posted online, write a little bit about your concept, and you could be in for the money, mate. Honestly, what a mad time to be alive. Submissions close on October the 24th, so hit that first link in my description and get cracking, mate. Back to the A7C Mark II. I honestly don't know why I didn't pick up that A7C Mark II earlier. People have been ranting and raving about this camera for ages, and I just never really saw a need for it in my camera system until I looked over at my Super 35mm lenses, including my anamorphic lenses, and I thought, I can't actually use you on my camera system. I want a camera that can shoot Super 35 still in the Sony ecosystem so that I can still shoot full frame if I want to, but have the ability to shoot on my Super 35mm lenses, whilst also adding an incredible full frame stills camera into my collection of cameras so I can actually shoot stills instead of the 12 megapixel that I used to get from my A7S. I've now got a 33 megapixel stills camera that can still shoot full frame 4K at 15 stops of dynamic range and have the ability to shoot in Super 35 on my other Super 35mm lenses for under £2,000. James, mate, sort your head out. Why didn't you do this earlier? This camera's nuts. Anyway, you lot, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little, rant as to why I love the A7C Mark II. I'm going to have a ton of cinematic and rigging videos with this camera coming up. So let me know if there's anything in particular that you lot want to see. Don't forget to check out Artlist 100k fund, mate, because that's a lot of dough. And as always, mate, I'll be catching you lot in the next